Welcome to the Album Anniversary Podcast. Today's show is about All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. It was released November 27th and November 30th, but we'll get there. November 27th, 1970, and is celebrating a 55-year anniversary. Hi, I'm your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy is what I go by on social media. And every day on social media, I do my best to post about what I call album anniversaries. So on the Album Anniversary Podcast, we take a look at a classic album, an album we love, or an album that's important to us. Before we jump in, let's welcome our guest today. I am once again welcomed by my dad, Mike. Dad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Caleb.
I'm excited to talk to you about this. We'll get into this record specifically, but I wanted to, this is George Harrison, so there's a Beatles connection. I want to go back to a Christmas gift I once got you, and I just want to briefly touch on that before we jump into the album. Do you have an idea of what Christmas gift I'm potentially talking about?
No.
Okay. So, one year for Christmas, I got you a mug with one of the Beatles on it.
Oh, yeah. The wrong one.
The wrong one. Yes. I remember getting it, and I think, I don't know how old this, I have no idea how old that mug is, because it's still into your house today, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I got you a Ringo Starr mug, and I remember you opening it up and being thankful, because I think I was still young enough. I think I was maybe high school, maybe I was in college or young adult, but like you were still like, oh, that's fun. But then you also did mention, I mean, he's not my favorite Beatle. And then I think that is when I learned that George Harrison is your favorite Beatle. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So yes, that Ringo Starr mug still sits in your house. I still use it if I'm over and in need of a coffee mug.
Wow, that's really going way back.
Yeah, it's something to spice things up. So, all right. Well, I think we got plenty to say about this album. So let's dive in and tackle it. Again, we're talking about All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, released November 27th, 1970 in the US, and then also released November 30th, 1970 in the UK. So two different release dates, but we're at that spot where it's a 55-year anniversary. What I find interesting, one of the many things about this album I find interesting, is that technically this is his third studio album. That's what I see it kind of highlighted as. I had no idea this was his third studio album. Does that feel accurate to you?
In his little primo here of my CD, he does even mention the first two were instrumentals.
Okay.
And so, yes, it really technically is his third, although he started working on it almost immediately after the Beatles broke up, which, of course, nobody really knows when they broke up. But he started working on this. I think the fact of the matter is he had quite a few songs that had been rejected by the Beatles, by Lennon and McCartney for a while, that he kind of had a few already ready to go.
Yeah. Yep. That is the feeling I get as well. Because at one point, we might cover it, but like, I read one thing that says he came in with hundreds of songs, kind of very ready to go. So, yeah. Do you know the name of those first two albums?
I'd have to look at the cheat sheet.
Okay. So one is the second one. I'm going to go backwards. The second one is called Electric Stuff. And then the first one is called Wonderwall Music. And I think it's related to a movie. So I think it's kind of a soundtrack. So it is kind of this weird thing. But the Wonderwall's come up recently on the show because we covered Oasis and their album from 1995, What's the Story, Morning Glory. And the big hit off that is called Wonderwall. And it is a direct reference to George Harrison's first album. So
All I know is that yes, he did a fair amount of producing, and Badfinger was a big find of his, and a couple other people. So he kind of had that production kind of thing going for him off and on.
okay, so it was like post Beatles. He was doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This album is a triple album. So originally it was a triple LP, and we'll get to the original vinyl. We will talk about it because that's kind of a fun story. And then on CD, it's a double CD. And I know you mentioned already a CD you have. I think I have a CD of it around here somewhere. So I have kind of two copies of it, which is weird. But again, it is a double CD, a triple LP, which I don't know, that's kind of cool. We've been talking about that on the show recently too. Do you want a double LP? You get to a triple LP and they are intense. We're going to cover two triple LPs here at the end of the year, this being one of them. This was produced by George Harrison and Phil Spector. So let's talk about Phil Spector. He is famous as a producer, a musician, a pioneer of the wall of sound and murder, obviously. So he has worked with the Ronettes. He worked with Ike and Tina Turner. He worked with the Beatles. He worked with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. He worked with Leonard Cohen, the Ramones, and of course, George Harrison. Any thoughts on Phil Spector?
No. I am trying to remember what the murder thing was, but
yeah, he late in his life, I don't know if he died in prison. I think he might have. It was late in his life. He was convicted of murder. I think it was second degree murder. I can't remember, but there was if I am doing this off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong, anybody who's listening and screaming at their podcast device, I apologize. But I believe it was a woman he was involved with. She turned up dead in his house, and it took quite a while. It was not like an immediate thing, but eventually he was charged with murder. And I do believe he died in prison, or at least was in prison at the time of his death, and maybe had been moved to a hospital at the time of his death. So he did serve out the last couple years. It wasn't an extremely long time, but he did serve, I think, towards the end of his life in prison. So yes, but most famous, I think, well, for the murder, but then also for the Wall of Sound, which was an absolute production. Like that is still a thing, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think we'll potentially talk about that Wall of Sound at some point too. But that's also is a kind of a unique part of his production kind of process, or his kind of aesthetic that he went for.
Well, yeah, the Wall of Sound is all the way through a lot of these songs. It's just kind of the, everything under the sun. When you look at all the musicians and
yeah.
The one that I think of is What Is Life, of how he starts with the bass, the acoustic guitar. He just kind of, they all come in gradually just to show the volume of backup on it.
Yeah. It's definitely something that is used, and I still, again, I'd make the comment. I think actually music has kind of gone back to it in a lot of ways. Like a lot of albums now, especially with the ability to digitally create stuff, I think it's become easier and easier for artists to kind of copy that sound in a lot of ways. There were I want to say 3 singles, but it's not really 3 singles. It's kind of 3 singles. But so let's talk about singles real quick. In the U.S., the first single was "My Sweet Lord" and "Isn't It a Pity." So that was released in the U.S. And then in the UK, "My Sweet Lord" was also released as a single. So you kind of have 2 singles, but it's kind of the same one, except for "Isn't It a Pity" is also on there. And then the second single in the U.S. was "What Is Life." So again, kind of 3 singles, "My Sweet Lord," "Isn't It a Pity," and What Is Life. But really, one of those is in, My Sweet Lord was in the UK. That was the only UK single. So it's just kind of an interesting look at it, that there wasn't a ton of singles. You figure triple album. We're going to talk about, how well it did sales wise, but really not a ton of singles off of this. Was this something that was on the radio in the 70s? I was not listening to the radio in the 70s. Is this something that was out there?
That's kind of how I got to know that this album was out, because My Sweet Lord was being played constantly.
Okay.
Then after a while, it was Isn't It a Pity? And then a little after that was What Is Life? So, I mean, kind of, well, we'll probably get to that. It's like, the radio was my only source of music at that point in time. And since it was George, and since it was interesting songs, throwing in the Hallelujah and Hare Krishna,
Right.
I mean, I just, I thought, wow, this is, I'd kind of like to get that album. I think when I thought I'm going to buy this album, I didn't realize it was a 3-record set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was a lot of money for me at that time.
Yeah. I can imagine. It's still a lot of money if you get a triple record. So yes, I can imagine it is. And I know there's a story about you getting it, so we'll save that for the first question, because I'm aware of the story. Because we'll get to it in a second. So this album would go on to be number one on the charts all over the world, a ton of charts around the world. It would hit number one. It would be 7 times platinum in the US with over 7 million copies sold. So this was a monster seller, which kind of speaks to the idea that it was all over the radio back then. So yeah, an absolute, Titanic of a seller. 7 million copies is quite a bit, especially for a triple record. You could argue it's an even bigger seller, but we don't need to debate that. These are other just kind of random facts that are out there. We made mention of it already, but it does sound like he walked in with about 100 songs, so he was absolutely ready to go when it came to making this. And it was a fairly long production cycle. I know that was the other thing I saw. It was, I think, over 6 months, because I think they stopped a couple times. There was some stuff that interrupted, but this was not only was it, he had a lot of songs to sift through and figure out what to do, but he also just did walk in with, or it did also take quite a bit of time to get produced, was another note that I had seen. It was a critical success. There's tons of, I think, good reviews at the time. I think in retrospect, especially, like, there's a lot of retrospective reviews out there, because it is hard to find reviews from the 70s, to be totally honest. They're just lost to time and space. But there's a lot of retrospective reviews that, have tons of high praise for this. So it is, I think, considered one of the better albums of all time. Just for context, All Things Must Pass was ranked 79th on the Times, the 100 Best Albums of All Time in 1993. Rolling Stone placed it at 368 on the magazine's 2023 updated The 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. Again, that list is useful for conversations. So, again, it has been gone on to be on kind of some of those, greatest albums lists, and was well reviewed at the time, and is still looked at as kind of one of these landmark rock and roll albums.
It's great from start to finish.
We'll get there. The last thing that I'll note is Eric Clapton and Ringo Starr, as well as a ton of other people contributed. So that kind of goes into the wall of sound of just there was a lot of people participating, but there's also a couple stars that joined him here. Eric Clapton and Ringo Starr were the biggest ones that I noticed. Now, granted, that could be my lack of knowledge, and there were other stars, but a lot of people contributed to this album.
Yeah, well, Billy Preston was also on it in a couple of spots, and he in some ways has been called the fifth Beatle because of his part in the Abbey Road, some like Get Back and some of those others.
Yeah, it's a pretty long list of people. I know it's on the CD. Like, if you look, like, there's a ton of people credited. And then obviously, like, we'll get to it, but there's Bob Dylan, I think, has some influence on here, because there's a cover, and I think one of the songs is written together, if I remember correctly. So yes, there's a lot of people involved in making this album. It's not just George, even though it is just him and some gnomes sitting on the cover.
Well, and what's interesting, which I didn't know until probably a year or two later, was this is literally how Derek and the Dominoes kind of got together.
Yeah.
Everybody of the Dominoes is here except for Dwayne Allman. And he makes mention of his little intro here in the 2000 issue about the fact that Eric had just come back off of Delaney and Bonnie, and those guys kind of were same with them, Carl Riddell, Bobby Whitlock, and Jim Gordon. And so they're all on this album as well. And of course, Eric's the big name, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, those are kind of some of my fun facts about this album. Do you have any fun facts that you want to add, or anything you want to add to the kind of the intro before we dive in and tackle our questions?
Well, see, I'm kind of partial to this album because this is my very first album I went out and purchased.
Okay. Well, let's get to that then. Let's talk about how you purchased it and the effort it took. How did you first discover this album?
Well, it was on the radio constantly, or at least My Sweet Lord and Isn't It a Pity. But I must have mentioned that to my brother because for my birthday, so it came out in November of 70. So for my birthday in September of 71, he thought this was great. He was going to get me a birthday present. Unfortunately, he forgot, and Ross and I had different music areas, so he got Jesus Christ Superstar.
Sure. That seems like something you would listen to.
Yeah, so I realized I had to exchange it. Well, so I had to, in my rickety old bike fortunately, that had a basket on the back, I had to drive 3, 4 miles up to the closest Target store in Columbia Heights. So you're talking the University of Minnesota up to Columbia Heights. And of course, there's no bike pass back then.
Yep.
And, get the exchange, get the record, hand it to the cashier, and they'll go, well, that'll be, $12, $15 more. And I go, what? And it's like, well, and then I realized that was probably the first time I realized it was a 3-record set.
Sure.
And Jesus Christ Superstar was only 2, maybe even 1. I don't know.
Sure.
So I literally paid for my own birthday present. So, I got it back. And of course, I didn't have a record player. So, I had to borrow other people or go into other people's rooms and listen to the album. But all summer long, I listened to it with a friend over and over and over again. It was something I just enjoyed, particularly side 1. But we can go into that. But yes, that is my first record I ever bought, partly because we didn't have a record player at home that worked.
Sure.
And plus, rock and roll was kind of forbidden anyhow. So it was like, here I'm in college, and so I can buy what I want, and this had a real influence on me. Well, in probably 2 categories, in the sense of Dylan, as well as the fact that a year later, he would do the concert for Bangladesh. And, and so Harrison did all his hits, Beatle and some of them off of this. So, by that time, I was quite comfortable with knowing his after Beatles songs and stuff. So it was, so he was a trendsetter in the sense that he was the first Beatle with a reasonable album after the Beatles, as well as then, if I'm not mistaken, the Concert for Bangladesh is really the first concert where superstars come together to promote something,
Hmm.
and everybody played free. And and the back of it is the check for what, well, I can't even remember what it is, that went to UNICEF to help Bangladesh, because I can't remember what it was. It was a major catastrophe, and Ravi Shankar was, of course, the influence on George about that. I bet you didn't know any of that.
Okay, I knew about the bike story because we talked about it relatively recently. And I think you did mention, as we were kind of getting ready for this, the concert for Bangladesh. So I was tangentially aware of these things. I'll be real honest. Like, I don't have like an emotional connection to this. Like, this wasn't my first record. I feel like I probably heard this growing up. I probably heard it around the house occasionally, or at least I definitely was familiar with My Sweet Lord, although less familiar than I thought. And we'll talk about that when we talk about songs. But so I think that's probably my connection with it. There's not some sort of like, deep emotional connection. Wasn't even until actually, more recently that I gave it or much later in life that I gave it a much deeper listen. The fun part about it is, since I got into records, I did go back to your house because you still had a kind of a stack of records in your basement, but not really anywhere to play them. And so I did steal a couple, and this is one of them, and it is still the same record. So that record that you biked up and got from Target still is in my house, and we listened to it a couple times this week. It was on while we were doing stuff around the house. So that record lives on and still actually sounds really, really good. So there you go. That record is still in my possession. What is it that you love about this album?
Well, it's George,
Hmm.
and there's the guitar licks throughout this. Some of them not his, but
Hmm.
it's just the fact that he finally got his say. He clearly had talent on his own, but he never really kind of was able to break the bubble.
Hmm.
And it was kind of like, I thought, well, and I was more a Harrison fan than a Dylan fan at that time.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of an intro to Dylan, because of course Dylan played at the concert for Bangladesh and he played 5 songs.
Hmm.
And so I'm going, oh, okay. And I knew Blowing in the Wind and stuff, but I never really listened much to him. So it was kind of and the fact that it opens with "I'll have you anytime," the guitar chords and intro to me is just like, it can put me to sleep. It's so soothing.
Hmm.
It's just, I just think it's such a mellow song, and you can hear both the Dylan and Harrison influence in it, in the words and such. So I just that side especially I listened to over and over and over again with my friend that up in Duluth when I was at home. But
Hmm.
it's just like, that's probably the biggest part of it. It was just that it was a post Beatle. I loved the Beatles. I loved George. So this was just kind of the way to go as far as things.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue it's the best post Beatles album any of them did. I know there are people who would argue, I think it's Imagine by John Lennon. I'm not that sold on it. Maybe Paul McCartney, once he hit Wings, I could argue, he's got a lead. Band on the Run is, I enjoyed that album. I'll be totally honest, but like this, it's not just that I think this is the best post Beatles album that any of them did. It's kind of miles ahead of everything else, and that's, I think, kind of incredibly intriguing, and it makes it easy to like in a lot of ways, because you just didn't get, and the fact that Ringo is on it, and there is the Dylan connection, and Clapton is playing on it. I don't know. There's some really kind of cool things about it, just kind of where it stands in history in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it it kind of established him as he was just not the quiet Beatle. He was actually did have his own talent, and I always thought that he didn't get as much credit for even at the end when Here Comes the Sun and Something were the best songs on that album, and it was just kind of, and to me, probably my favorite George song as a Beatle is Why My Guitar Gently Weeps. And of course, that's Eric playing the lead on that. But, it seemed like George was the innovator of the Beatles as much as everybody says the Beatles were innovators. I mean, he brought the sitar in, he brought Clapton and Billy Preston in to play some of the music in certain situations. He seemed to have kind of his own style. He knew he kind of went his own, and this kind of was a justification for it.
The other part of this that I think really, really works well is the production on it. Like you mentioned, like the first song being able to kind of soothe you to sleep. And I do think they get just this really great guitar tone throughout. Like it just sounds smooth in a lot of ways. And so I think they did some nice work to get a really great guitar tone on this. All of the instruments, when they get their moments, like stand out. The horns, I think, are really, really cool throughout this album. The bass lines are, really, really good. And, sometimes they are a little, in that wall of sound, they can be hard to pick up, but I think they all get their moments to kind of come through. And I think that wall of sound is also part of this, that like there is something. Phil Spector did seem to know how to produce hits. In fact, I know he picked My Sweet Lord for the first single, and George was like, no, it's too religious. Nobody will like that. And he's like, nope, trust me, George, that's your single. That's the best song. That's gotta be the single. And he really fought him on it and eventually kind of won out. And so like, I think his hand in it is important, because I think it allowed George a space to like do this thing, like bring these 100 songs and create with, kind of the right pushes. And I think he knew how to push the buttons the right way. And so I do think that is part of it. I think the production on this is as good as it gets when it comes to a produced album.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's no doubt. There's all sorts of different sounds in it. That's kind of what I like, some of the mellow songs in it. But also there's a couple of them you just got to sit back and turn it up and listen to the guitar on them, like The Art of Dying. Holy smokes, Clapton's guitar on that is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like you're kind of drawn to the rock, like specifically guitar rock? That is something that you seem to be kind of drawn to.
Yeah. I mean, well, here's my history. My first album was All Things Must Pass. My second album was Concert for Bangladesh, because of the influence of this. And then my third one was Derek and the Dominoes, Layla and Other Love Songs.
Yeah.
That sums me up for probably the first 5 years of my album purchasing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is kind of also something that does stand out on this, is like this, when you say the phrase classic rock, this is some of the songs on here. In fact, my classic rock playlist that I created, where I threw a bunch of songs that are classic rock, the cover of it is All Things Must Pass, because I kind of feel like it is like quintessential classic rock sound, and maybe one of those like the kind of the better produced or well put together classic rock albums of all time.
Yeah, there's just a lot of sound, a lot of different sound that uh, the Apple Scruffs with the harmonica. Just he
Yeah.
has a lot of just different sounds.
Yeah. So when you got this, at any point did you go, "Oh my gosh, this is 3 records. This is way too long"? Like, as you could argue, like, oh, maybe it's a little self-indulgent, but when you come in with 100 songs, it kind of gets tough to balance.
Well, the third record of the jamming, I thought, I didn't listen to that a lot. When I just wanted to hear some things, I'd probably turn it on and stuff. So
Hmm.
he could have probably done without that, but I don't, I don't know if there's ever been an explanation of why he threw that in there, other than, there's a bunch of great musicians on there.
Yeah. Well, if his first 2 albums were instrumentals, maybe it just was something he was comfortable with, and it was like, let's just have this on here as disc 3. As like, yeah, let's just record a little instrumental. There is some lyrics, I think, in the Happy Birthday song, but
Yeah.
mostly instrumental.
And my understanding is he did like to jam.
Hmm.
So maybe that's just seemed natural for him.
Yeah. That's kind of a bygone of the 70s, I think. Like, bands today aren't just going to sit down and jam, especially the way albums are recorded today. It's all track by track. I mean, that's the vast majority of it. So you're just not going to get that on a record today. Like, that's just not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want to call out about why you love it?
Well, My Sweet Lord was, he took it for Hare Krishna. I took it for Jesus. So, it was kind of like, so I mean, in some ways it was, I kind of overdub when I'm singing it to not Hare Krishna, but Thank You, Lord Jesus, that kind of thing. But
That's your own headcanon on it, is that it doesn't mention Hare Krishna. It's just a misheard
yeah,
lyric.
yeah. I mean, and his other albums got even and more Hare Krishna and stuff.
Hmm.
But he was, to me, always the interesting Beatle. And I don't know if it was just the guitar or the fact that he always seemed more serious than the others, about what's going on in the world. And the fact that, he, of all the Beatles and the influence, he's the one that said, "Hey, I care about this country. It's being ravaged."
Hmm.
It just kind of struck a chord with me, as I always kind of felt like he was that kind of a guy.
If not for you, the winter would hold no spring. Couldn't hear a robin sing. I just wouldn't have a clue. If not for you.
We've already talked a little bit about some of these songs, but what are some of your favorite songs off this album?
Well, one of mine I always love, and it's probably the acoustic intro to it, but it's Run of the Mill. And it's, what is the opening lines? Everyone has choice to and what to, I have the lyrics somewhere, but it's you that decides. I mean, it's just like, it just kind of goes, well, yeah. And it was kind of a period of my life where I needed to make some decisions, and it kind of, here it's everyone has choice, when and to and not to make their voices. It's you that decides which way you will turn. And I mean, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, and the beautiful acoustic guitar on that one was just kind of overwhelmed me. The other one that my friend and I listened to a lot was a Waiting on You All. because we love the fact that and the Pope owns 51% of General Motors, and the stock exchange is the only one to quote us.
Hmm.
We laughed. We thought that was hysterical, but that was just a little of I think George's little side humor on things, and he does take a few digs at the Beatles with Scruffs and Wah Wah. So I mean, I think he had to work through some of the fact that he just kind of felt like, so when you talk about 100 songs, so there's 18 songs on this album. I'm not going to count the second version of Isn't It a Pity?
Sure.
And I'd say easily of these, 12 of them would have been good Beatles songs. And I go, 12? That's a full album.
Yeah.
And and the ones that you'd take out would be Dylan's If Not For You and Waiting on You All, and even maybe My Sweet Lord because of the religious overtones. I mean, some of these have a lot of religious overtones that I don't think Lennon and McCartney appreciated. So, clearly put them on there. I mean, Hear Me, Lord that's another worship song. That's Forgive Me, Lord, for the years I ignored you. Wow, that's pretty heavy duty stuff.
Yeah. That's kind of I'm gonna call it the closing track. I know it's not the closing track, but that's kind of how it kind of closes out the album, or it closes out side 4. Like, so you mentioned Waiting on You All. That's one that, like, so I will say it, like, side 1 and 2 are pretty locked in. Like, this is, if that's the entire album, it's a really, really good album. And then I will say it, like, on side 3 and side 4, there's a little less. And I really do like side 5 and 6, just because I'm all for the instrumental album. Like, I like a good instrumental album, and it feels like kind of a big swing to just kind of throw that on there. Yes, it probably turned the price way up, but like side 3, you're kind of going there, and then Waiting on You All comes on, and you're kind of like, this is a single level song. Like, it's just such a great pop rock song. It's not just a rock and roll song. It's got just this great energy. It's one of the moments where I feel like the wall of sound kind of production really comes through the most. And it's just this wonderful pop music moment, which, again, you tie this all back to the Beatles, I would argue, is, I've always heard the argument that, like, Lennon was the edgy one, and Paul McCartney wanted to write kind of poppy love songs, and they mixed together, and it's kind of why a lot of it worked so well. But, like, here is him doing both of those things and nailing it. Like, here is him finding that balance without either of them and being able to write that. And again, it's just thrown on there on the, it's just the middle of side 3. And it's this amazing, I mean, I think it's just this amazing pop song. It's also one of my favorites from this album.
And interesting enough, he played that song in the concert for Bangladesh. Considering, the number of choices he had to pull from the album, but he did that one.
Yeah. So you mentioned Wah Wah. There's a couple of these that we have to talk about. But so you mentioned Wah Wah, and you mentioned the dig at the Beatles potentially. I had never heard this. You mentioned this to me, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. So what is it that you heard that this is kind of about?
Wah Wah. What I heard was that Yoko Ono had given him a headache, so he was, "You're giving me a Wah Wah." So he must have had that one stored back in his mind. And again, that one's the wall of sound, and
Yes.
And he did that for the concert in Bangladesh, and it is when they turn the lights on and the sound comes out. It's a volume of sound, and it's kind of like that on the album as well.
Yeah. This is one of those ones that kind of has it all, in my opinion. The horns are great. This is one of the ones that the bass line really stands out the most to me. Like you can just really, really hear it. Like, yeah, it is. It's a good rock song. I mean, this one's much more of a rock song than a pop song, but like it is still got enough pop sensibility that it just works so well. And there's so much layered sound on this that it just kind of keeps on kind of washing over you. It's a really great rock song that, again, less connected with it. Like you come right out of My Sweet Lord into that and you're like, oh my gosh, you're kind of starts like, I can see why you played side one over and over and over again, because there's just not a bad song on side one of this album.
Well, and I often thought, isn't it a pity where he goes, "Pity, pity." Is this like he's kind of making fun of Hey Jude a little?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you really don't know his mind at this point, because I think he was, he quit, at least my understanding, he walked away at least twice during the Beatles. And he's the one that said, I'm not playing concerts anymore. I'm done with that. So, he did put his foot down as far as some of that, but I don't think he was he wasn't like, he didn't like all the attention, that Lennon and McCartney probably did like. And he just, he was the quiet Beatle in one sense, but, he just kind of, I think he was serious, and I mean, serious about finding why he was put on this earth. And that's kind of, I think, his Hare Krishna comment, but he had his issues too. The losing of his wife to Clapton, I think there's a little addiction. He kind of wandered there for a while after his big success, and kind of I had to settle down. And then I think he kind of came around and started producing better records again.
Yeah,
which I totally lost track of, because by that time I was done college, I had kids, and I wasn't even keeping up with any of his albums at that point.
You had switched over to your Dylan phase, and Dylan and having kids phase, which is still going. The Dylan and having kids kind of, I mean, we're still around. So,
yeah.
So what do you think of his cover of If Not For You that's on this?
Oh, it's 100 times better than Dylan's.
Yeah, they don't do anything innovative with it, but it still is, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, well, he slows it down, and he's got a better voice, and the back guitar is much better. Dylan's kind of makes me the beautiful words, but it's just Dylan just does not hit it. And he I got one of his outtakes, and Harrison is on the song and Dylan's singing it, but he goes, "Ready, George?" And it's George doing the lead guitar on it. So I mean, he clearly knew the song, and I think he had every idea why he was playing it with Dylan, that he was going to put it on his album.
Did they write it together, or it was a Dylan song first, right?
That's the total Dylan song. I'll Have You Anytime is the joint one.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Are there other songs you feel like you need to call out? I mean, we got to talk about, we got to tell my little funny story. We were camping a couple weeks ago that I told you. So about My Sweet Lord. So let's talk about My Sweet Lord again. It is the hit off this. It is, it's included on soundtracks. It is probably the most, I think it's the most recognizable post Beatles song of any of them. I think there's one by John Lennon again that everybody would reference, but I think this is it. I think My Sweet Lord is it. And I'll say it, this is embarrassing to admit. You mentioned we set up we were going to talk about this, so I was doing some research on it and I was listening, and you made just with the Hare Krishna chants, and I was like, what's he talking about? Because I had never caught it. So then I listened to it, and I get to the spot where he does just starts chanting Hare Krishna, and I was like, I have been listening to this song probably at some level my entire life, because it was probably around our house. And I never caught that till about 2 weeks ago. I'm an idiot, but there you go.
Yeah, no, it's there. I caught it right away, and record player, the radios played it.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the one song I can't stand.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You want to take a stab at it?
Let me think. Beware of Darkness? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
No, he goes on for almost 5 minutes. I dig love.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I want to see what my notes are on that. Oh, that's the beginning of side 4. Yeah, I don't have any notes around that one, so that's one I was indifferent about.
Yeah. I love dig. Well, okay. Really, were you shooting for a song there, George?
What's funny though is it is followed up with The Art of Dying, which I thought was another good one. I mean, I think that's the really interesting thing is that on side 4, Art of Dying, Isn't It a Pity, the second version, and then Hear Me Lord are all really good songs. So like even as that final, and again, I know there's the Apple Jam afterwards, but like, even that fourth side still has, I think, 3 very solid songs. It may not be as amazing as side 1 is, but I don't know, for even a side 4, it still packing in some hits late in the album.
No, I think clearly he had a lot of things running through his head, and this it's a kind of reflection of it.
Yeah,
The Art of Dying, I said before, was Clapton's lead guitar on that is like, wow, that's right up there with your Cream there, Eric.
I think that's a really solid one. And then I will say the last one I want to just call out is What Is Life? So what I like about that is that there's kind of the acoustic guitar, and then there's the electric guitar, there's more horns, but the horns kind of make it feel like there's a little bit of soul to it. And then there's a drum tone on this that felt really unique. Maybe it's on the whole album, but it felt really unique on this song in particular. But like, I know he would have some connection to like some soul musicians. I swear I was watching some video on this, and there was kind of a comment about that. And so I thought that was what was interesting about What Is Life. And I wrote these notes a little bit ago, and I listened to the album a bunch, but I didn't go back and specifically listen to that song. But I feel like there was some sort of like, just, I don't know, the way that song comes together, it feels like it just has a lot of soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I have a 2-disc CD,
mm-hmm.
and I don't look, I just grab the first disc that falls out and put it on. And if it's, I'll have you anytime, I go, oh yeah. But if it's the other one that starts with, I think it is What Is Life, I go, okay. Maybe I think it starts with Beware of Darkness. It
has to, because Run of the Mill is the end of disc 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, Beware of Darkness. Yeah, it is an interesting breakup because it doesn't work on CD as well as I think it works on the LPs in some ways, because of where you have to break it up.
Send me down again as the days stand up on end. You've got me wondering how I lost your friendship, but I see it in your eyes. Though I'm beside you, I can't carry the blame for you. I may decide to get out with your blessing, while I carry on guessing how will you make it?
The final question we always end with is, why is this something, and I know that a lot of times people are like, yeah, listen to the last hour, but why is this an album that's something that's kind of important to you, or something that you still think holds up and it's worth going back and checking out 55 years later?
I mean, to think that some of these artists, the ones that are still alive, are still going strong and had, just an impact on rock and roll. I mean, this is 70, 71. The Beatles broke up. Music, rock and roll was going to kind of change course here. And yet this is just a sound of, it's very much in some ways a Beatle album with a little more religion,
Sure.
you know, because his guitar is clearly there in some. He never thought himself all that good of a guitar player, is my understanding. But I just loved his style. It wasn't that Clapton blues and crazy, but it's just that melodious. I mean, that's why I think he fits so well with the Beatles, with Lennon and McCartney. Is he always could find that uh, tone or whatever that made their songs even better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The way the guitar comes through is that, yes, this doesn't feel bluesy. Like, it doesn't feel like there's probably moments of it, but like it definitely does not feel like it's a blues rock ripoff. I agree. I think there is the way this comes out musically. Again, it's a little more pop. It's a little more soul. It doesn't feel like, because I can see the appeal, and there's moments where like the real bluesy influenced guitar, like classic rock, is good. I want to listen to it, but I like this a lot better, where it doesn't have as much. It doesn't feel like it has as much of that blues influence. So I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Well, and to be, I think this is why he and Dylan did get along. Is George wrote some pretty good lyrics.
Hmm.
And isn't it a pity? Is certainly. I'm one of my favorite lines of "Why My Guitar Gently Weeps" is, with every mistake we surely must be learning, and it's kind of like, nope, we haven't, George. He asks he does a lot of asking of questions, like what is pity? What is life? Isn't it a pity? Is kind of a backside of a question. We take, but we don't give, and so I mean, I just found that a lot sprinkled through this is some songs, like I already mentioned on Run of the Mill, is some pretty decent lyrics.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a little more introspective than just a pop record. Like, it's he's trying to say something, but he's also still, choosing Phil Spector is even just a kind of a sign of saying, like, yeah, I still want this to be a pop hit. And, I think My Sweet Lord is an incredible, I mean, that's an incredible pop song.
Yeah, and well, and when you think about it, that's got to be of his songs. I'm looking at the lyrics. It's the one with the least amount of lyrics.
I suppose, yeah. There's a lot of repeating, huh?
Yep.
Oh, interesting. For me, I'll just say, this is less of a, this is my childhood or anything like that. This isn't that. But I think this album is important because of kind of some of the things I mentioned before. So I'm kind of repeating myself a little here, but like, it's a classic album. It's, again, if you're making a greatest albums of all time, not just favorite list, but greatest albums of all time, I think you got to at least consider this one. And I think I would argue it's, of the Beatles, post Beatles, this is the only one that you really need to consider. Again, maybe Lennon's Imagine probably needs to be considered, but I still think this is just miles better in a lot of ways. And so I think this has to be considered for that. It is that Beatles connection that's pretty amazing. But then, like, I think probably a lot of people get intimidated looking at the triple album. So, like, if you want to listen to this, like, just know, like, actually, you just got to get to Hear Me, Lord. And then you can turn off the rest of it. That's fine. It's just a jam. Come back to that another time when you want an instrumental album. But, like, just try and cut this down, because I think the full length of it, let me look. I don't even know if I can find it. The full length, it is long. It's an intense listen. But, like, just know, like, yeah, you can kind of cut out some of the last 5 tracks. That shortens it up a little, because one of them's 11 minutes. One of them's 8 minutes. I mean, you can really cut off the last, little bit of this album. And it's a little less intimidating, and it's just full of these great pop rock post Beatles songs that just work on so many levels. That's my opinion. That's why this is important to go back to and important to check out, because I think it had an influence going forward, and I love albums like that.
Yeah. I am just partial because it's George.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, they haven't been mentioned, so here you go. Center Square for those listening at home. Five Iron Frenzy is going to get their mention. Like, it is hard for me to like break it down and say like, oh, this is something they really messed up. Like, I really have to push myself. So I think there is something about that. Like, you just feel this, connection, you feel this emotional connection to an artist, and that can enhance your love of an album.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when I'm listening to some of Dylan's bad ones,
Right.
and he does have bad ones. There occasionally is a gem mixed in one of a bad album, and the fact that he could come out with so many good songs in this, a lot of variety, and I mean, clearly he had a instinct. He was a good musician. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, variety is a good phrase. That's a good way of talking about it.
I mean, and the fact that his career, with the Traveling Wilburys, clearly he had, everybody respected him. It's kind of ironic that when they were the Beatles, he was kind of the quiet one, hardly noticeable. As an ex-Beatle, he's the one that mixed it up with so many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he didn't have to be the star. That's the amazing thing about the Traveling Wilburys. Is my story about that one is that it was a Tom Petty. Yeah, Tom Petty and George were saying, "Well, hey, we got this connection." And Tom Petty said, "Well, I want Jeff Lynne," and George said, "I want Bob."
The Volume 3 just celebrated a let's see, that was released in 1980, so what, 45-year anniversary, is that right? Yeah, so that just literally this week. Which there is no Volume 2, right? It's Volume 1, Volume 3, which is not turn of events.
And Volume 3 is the after Roy's gone. So
yeah, Jeff Lynne is a bit of the oddball in that group, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he had a connection with Tom Petty right at that point, and Roy Orbison. So he's the one that brought those two guys together into the group. So it made sense to kind of throw him in there. And hey, he's not a bad, Electric Light Orchestra wasn't bad in its heyday, and he was the main point of that one.
Yeah, I know. I love Electric Light Orchestra. I just think of Electric Light Orchestra as a pop band. Like, I know that that's not probably what they're seen as, but like their best songs, in my opinion, are just pure pop songs. That's when they're at their best. Where like that's not where Dylan's necessarily at his best. I don't think that's where Tom Petty's at his best. I think, and that's not where George Harrison is. I think those guys are at their best when they are a little bit more rock influenced, like, or that kind of pop sensibility with good rock and roll. Roy Orbison, I can't tell you if he probably is more of a pop star than a rock and roll star. So maybe that's where him and Jeff Lynne fit in well and balance them out. But I see Jeff Lynne as a more of a pop star, and that's probably my misconception, but that is how I see it.
So here, let me just read you the opening couple paragraphs of what he said in the re-release.
Okay.
I still like the songs on the album and believe they can continue to outlive the style in which they were recorded. It was difficult to resist remixing every track. All these years later, I would like to liberate some of the songs from the big production that seemed appropriate at the time, but now seem a bit over the top with the reverb in the wall of sound. And then he goes on, he goes, I was fortunate to be with the right place to have the remnants of Delaney and Bonnie band, the drums, bass, and keyboard players, namely Jim Gordon, Carl Rattle, and Bobby Whitlock, had come to England to hang out with Eric Clapton, who later became Derek and the Dominoes. And then he also mentions the fact that this album is important to me and a timely vehicle for all the songs I had been writing during the last period with the Beatles. I began recording just months after we had finally decided to go our own separate way. So he clearly had a lot of these already there.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you open up your heart, see he's right there. He always was and will be. He will relieve you of your care. I chant in the name of the Lord and you'll be free. The Lord is waiting on you all to awaken and see. I chant in the name of the Lord and you'll be free. The Lord is waiting on you all to awaken and see.
Okay, that's it. That is our breakdown of All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. Again, released November 27th in the United States and November 30th in the UK, 1970. So a 55-year anniversary. Dad, I'd ask where people can find you online, but that would be impossible because you have no online presence. So you're not going to help me promote the show. That's kind of a bummer, but yeah, anyway, I love having you on the show, Dad. This is... my love of music clearly comes from the music I was raised around, and much more yours than Mom's. So we were talking while we were camping. The Nylons, that a cappella group that Mom liked, never quite hit as much as Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and people like George Harrison. So thank you for your love of music. It has made my life more rich. So
Don't forget the Moody Blues.
yeah, I'll be honest, Dad. Of all the bands we listened to, they're my least favorite growing up. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh man, okay.
I've gone back and I've tried to listen to some of their albums because they're more like a prog rock thing, right? Like, and that's as close to prog rock as you got, because you weren't a Pink Floyd guy, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So yeah, I don't connect as much with the prog rock. It's not my thing. And so in general, that's not something I'm as interested in. So yeah, the Moody Blues. Let me tell you, if you want to get Moody Blues records, there's tons of them in the dollar bins. They are one of the easier bands from that time period to collect because there's tons of them out there if you go digging through the cheap bins. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So clearly, a lot of people hit that phase just like you and said, "Why do I got this record?"
I think so, or just the prog rock is tied to some certain activities, and maybe people grew out of those activities and a little less interested in the music. That could be part of it too. Not that I grew out of those activities.
Right.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Dad. I really appreciate you taking an hour out of, what is it, a Thursday? Oh man, it's been a long week to hang out and talk about this album. I really appreciate it. I already have shows next year. I'll spoil it, Dad, if I'm still doing the show next year and I'm still working through it. The bootleg series, volume 1 through 3, it hits a big anniversary next year. So if you're interested in talking about that,
I get lost in the bootlegs. Is that the one with some of his Jesus releases?
Let's see. Caleb's Research Corner. Hang on. Volume 1 through 3, the rare and unreleased. Hold on. I'm almost there. It's from Freewheelin' Outtakes, Live at Carnegie Hall, The Times They Are A-Changing. It's most of his early stuff. Bring It All Back Home, Blonde on Blonde, Basement Tapes, and then Desire, Infidels, Shot of Love seem to be the big... There's one Blood on the Tracks alternative take. So that seems to be a lot of them. Oh, one from Empire Burlesque. Ooh.
I like the Empire Burlesque.
It's you're I think you're the only one, Dad.
No, I'm thinking of the bootleg here. I'm going to find it. The bootleg I think is the best of all of Dylan's. Let me find it here real quick.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I've got this on my account. I may not own this one. Oh boy. I know I've owned volume 1 through 3.
No, this is volumes 1 through 3, 1961 to 1991.
Yeah, this one's got a huge like a huge variety on it. So I own this one, and then I own the Volume 7, the No Direction Home soundtrack one. Those are the two I own. I only own those two.
Yeah, no, I think there are some incredible songs on this one.
There you
Blind
go.
Blind Willie McGee, Foot of Bride, Lord Protect My Child. I love that one. Yeah, I guess there is Empire Burlesque right at the end when the night comes falling in. That's Empire Burlesque. Yeah.
Yeah.
Farewell, Angelina. Yeah, there's. When I first got this, I go, oh man, half of these songs should have been on the original albums.
Well, save it for March, Dad. Save it for March. Come back on the show in March, and we'll talk about it then. This was, if you wanted to get this on vinyl, it's 5 vinyls. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I remember that. I used to get it from the library for a while.
That's crazy.
It went on and on. All righty.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dad. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Help me, Lord, please, to burn out this desire. Leave me, Lord,
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Album Anniversary Podcast. I want to say thanks again to my dad, Mike, for joining the show. It was great to have him on the show. Great to talk about this album. Hopefully he will be on the show again at some point to talk more about Bob Dylan or other classic albums. So love talking to my dad. Loved having him on the show. Pretty fun. Let us know what you thought. What do we get right? What do we get wrong? What are your favorites from this album? I'm still on all the social medias: Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, Patreon. I'm on all of them. You can also email the show, CalebTheSpypodcasts@gmail.com. I have a running spreadsheet of albums and that I'd want to cover, episodes I want to do. Let me know. Hit me up at that email. I can give you access to the spreadsheet, and we can chat about potentially doing an episode. I'm trying to plan 2026 next year and look ahead. So hit me up and we can potentially connect about a show. No promises. Again, I got a lot of people who want to talk about music, so but just throwing it out there. Please subscribe and share the podcast. Please leave a rating, leave a review, share it with somebody. Those of us who aren't famous, this is the only way that we can spread the word about podcasts. The algorithm isn't going to pick it up that much, but every little bit helps. And we need people to help us spread the word. So if you like what I do, tell somebody about it. If I cover an album that you really, really love and you like the conversation, just share it with somebody. We really appreciate it, those of us who are not famous. The other podcast I work on is called I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We are recording new episodes. We're working on getting some stuff out. Again, it's called I Survived Youth Group in the 90s, and we don't just reminisce about that youth group experience, although we do some of that. It's a little bit of nostalgia, but then we want to kind of hear where people are at now and how that youth group experience impacted their life, whether that means they've left the faith entirely or they're still at the church they were raised at. We just want to hear people's stories. We're not trying to change anybody's mind and or influence anybody in that way. We just want people to have a chance to share their story, share where they're at, and why they got there. We just think those stories are important. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon.